Hello everybody, this is Jack Dennis and welcome to our fly fishing and tying channel. I hope you're all having a good start to the new year and out tying a lot of flies. We started a couple of weeks ago with our Jack Dennis and Friends fly tying session. Our first one was with Dave Allison, and I'm going to be showing you some from the past. One of the things I've been involved with my fly tying career is setting up fly tying theaters and been involved with the many conclaves that fly fishing groups and clubs have over the country. And they really highlight tyers that you may not have ever met. And one of the best ones is ones in Idaho, both the Western Idaho Expo and the Eastern Idaho Expo, which is in Idaho Falls. They've been doing these fly tying get-togethers for a long time. We're talking over 30 years. So I want to do some highlights from some that I filmed in 2009 and 2010. And you'll get a chance to meet some names you know, and maybe some names you didn't know. And one of the nice things about tying at these expos is all the excitement and sounds of people going around telling lots and lots of fly fishing stories. Most of them may be exaggerated. But one of the nice things about the theater is you get a chance to listen to the tyers talk about their experiences and answer questions. I think you're going to enjoy them. We're going to start this week with several. We'll try to give you the most information. And I know some of you are going to say, wow, I don't know about the materials. Well, these are really uncut. So, you do your best on figuring it out. But I think you're going to enjoy the interaction with the crowd and with the tyers. And really uncut and I think extremely fun. Let's get going.
Let's do a head change here real quick on the vise. This is a Wasatch vise, by the way, if anybody's interested. It's a very fine instrument for me. It's been really, really good. There's a feature I really like about it. Two features really that I really like. One is this jaw. You can see this is probably one of the finest jaws that you'll see out there. I can put a 22 in there and still work on the backside and on the downside of a bend of the hook. It's one of the only ones that I know you can do that with. Okay, this little deer hair emerger is a pattern that came out of a lake that I fish. I fish East Lake. And I love the dry fly fisherman. It's not a dry fly fish. It's not a zen thing. It's not like it has to be the only way you can fish. There is nothing more fun for me than to watch a fish feed, a big fish especially, feed on top. Just his little nose keep poking up. I had one at East Lake 2 years ago. I remember this fish because it was one of the longest casts I ever made with a 3-weight rod, and it's one of my favorite rods. I use a 3-weight 7.6 Avid St. Croix. This rod has probably 3,000 fish on it right now, and that's not exaggeration. If you figure I do 100 days fishing a year with no problem, and that's one of my primary rods, and I catch 10 fish a day, in 3 years it's no problem to have about 3,000 fish. Okay, so it's not a story, it's just the truth. And this little guy's, this guy's nose kept popping up. And he had like this triangle pattern going. And then all of a sudden he changed and it was like he was doing a zigzag and this thing, so I couldn't figure out which little pod of foam to throw in. So finally I guessed right and I got him. But this pattern came out of trying to fish caparidons, blueing olives up on this lake, and calabatus. And so I wanted to make I found that they were kind of sipping and stuff, or that when I took a parachute, they would take a parachute, but as soon as the parachute sunk a little bit, they seemed to take an emerger or a cripple type fly, a Quigley cripple, And Quigley cripple is a really beautiful fly, but it has a lot of materials and it takes a little while to get to tie. So I said, how fast can I tie this thing? Okay? So we're going to switch threads from a gray to this one is called Rusty Dun. Okay? It's just an 8/0. I find this thread, I use this color in the gray a lot. This Rusty Dun will take on olives and tans and brown colors. So you can use it for a lot of flies without having to have all those kinds of threads. Okay, so we're going to tie this in, and we're going to run right down. We're going to take the thread right down the back side. We're going to stop about right there. This hook is a Partridge Klinkenheimer hook. Let's see if we get this in the camera. There we go. This is a 20. They call it 20. Now it looks monstrous because it's an English hook, but the gap is extra wide, and so when they have a 20, the gap, that's how it comes out. The hook just looks bigger, but it is a 20 if you were to shrink it in its normal size. So now just put a little bit of Antron shuck. You can use Antron, you can use poly, you could use a little some out of the bottom of a hackle, the worst little feathers and stuff out of a dry fly hackle or any kind of hackle. You could use marabou. Doesn't matter. We're going to take and we're going to put in just a few fibers of this. Okay. But we're going to do this a little different than most people. I've got probably about an inch in my hand, so I'm going to tie it right in the middle. And then I'm just going to fold back that, and I'm going to lay it down. Again, it saved me from trying to tie in a bunch of butt ends and get something the right length to tie it in it. I'm not, okay, it's not rocket science. Okay, as my girlfriend tells me all the time, it's not rocket science. Okay, don't let it beat you. Okay, so now we take a little silver wire. Now, there's a tire out here, Ed Berg. I don't know when he's tying. But if you get a chance, see Ed and ask him about why he uses yellow Cahill thread for a rib. Okay, if you get a chance, ask him. Okay, and he'll give you this great explanation that we know what the color of guts on a bug is because our windshields are always yellow when we get into a flock of it. Okay, so he thinks that that's why gold ribbing works, and he was building. I wanted to know how he built the lightest dry fly, and he was using a yellow rib of light Cahill because it was lighter than wire. So. But we're using a silver wire today on this, and I use either silver or gold. I didn't cut the tail yet. I didn't cut that shuck off because I don't want it to get caught up in all the rest of the materials I'm putting on. So leave the shuck or whatever that little tail material you have, leave it long if you can. Otherwise, it's just going to get in your way when you're working here at the rear, okay? We're going to take another material that I'm starting to really like. It's Danville, and it's called stretch nylon, okay? And I can go, you can see I got some stretch in that stuff. It's really cool. Makes great thin bodies. It's quicker than Dubby. I had dubbing out, but the Beaties were here, and I know they handled this, and I left my other spool home, so I was able to get one. So we're just going to throw this in. Again, I'm leaving materials going forward because I'm going to keep the body as smooth as I can. It comes from tying Atlantic salmon and some steelhead tinsel bodies and stuff. You just learn to take your materials forward rather than having a bunch of butt ends here. Okay, I'm going to hang that up here in the clip. Another thing I like about this vise is I can take and I can lay my hand in here, and we're going to get this done fairly quickly, so we may get a chance to do this. Okay, so now we're going to take the thread forward, fill in a little bit if you see a little gap, come forward. You're going to stop there. And I'm going to take the nylon. Now, because this stuff stretches, I can pull on it now, and I can put a real fine body in the back. I can relax it as I move forward. Now, you do know that every time I go around, I am putting a twist in this. I'm putting a twist in this bobbin, a twist of thread. So you'll see me every once in a while sit here and spin that. I will spin this one because I'm trying to keep that floss. It's basically a floss material. I'm trying to keep it as flat as I can. Oop. One more, there we go. This one's twisted up the other way on me, okay. So bring that forward. Again, you could dub if you wanted to, but this makes such a nice thin body. It comes in colors, comes in red and yellow and fluorescent green, black. Makes great chronomid bodies if you're into lake making chronomids, or buzzers as the English would call them. So now again, I did a quick little matua. So I want to tie this off. My thread is in front of it, so how do I get there? I'm just going to flop them, and then I'm able to grab that. Okay. Again, it helped with the material being on the spool. And this stretch works really good on the bobbin. I really like it. And I use, these are Dr. Slick scissors. I really like this long, thin point. The only thing you have to be careful about is don't drop them on the floor. They, if you bend the point up, they become wire scissors, or whatever other kind of scissor you want to think it is. Okay. Okay, somehow I got a bunch of garbage up here because I wasn't paying attention. Now I really did it. But that's okay. That's okay. I'm a professional. I'm supposed to be able to save it. Let's see if we did. Let's see if we did. Yeah, I think we did. We did enough anyway, I think. I don't want to do that over. So we'll clean that up a little bit because we did destroy it a little bit. Again, it doesn't matter too much because I do dub this, so I do have some of them that are real buggy looking. So we'll smooth that out, get that stuff laid down a little nice. Make myself a little pad here for putting the deer when we put the deer in up here. So now I'll bring the wire rib forward. Again, I'm able to grab that shuck because I have some longer material and get it out of there. Now you'll see that this rib really lays down nicely. I don't know which camera is picking it up nice. Can you see good on that one? Yeah, okay. Okay, so when I get to the end, I'm going to take the wire and take some hard wraps. And I can snap that off of my finger. And now I take a couple of soft wraps, pull, and it's in there. Now if I wanted, I could cut that chuck and get it out of there. My bobkin in a minute. I got a piece here that, there we go. So I can cut it to length now if I want. I got one side that came out, the wrong side. We'll straighten it up. We'll take it for a ride. Again, we want to take this off all the way down the bottom because this hook is going to go like this. So this fly is going to sit in the water. When it sits in the water, it's going to sit something about like that. So this bottom is going to run under here. This will all be underwater. And I only put frog's fanny on the deer and the hackle. Okay. This is fairly fine. A fine deer. It's not a real thick one. You can see it's used pretty good. So we're going to take, again, I didn't tie this in first because I'm not going to worry about tying down the butt ends. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. I'd rather not have to try to cover that up with thread. I want the head of this thing really to float well. So I'm going to clean this up. Again, I'm pinching it here, getting the rear clean, leaving that flared a little bit, pinch the flare, let the tips open up, and then clean it out. Take and put it in my hair stacker. Now, one of the things about a hair stacker, or when you take something out of a hair stacker, take it out the direction you're going to tie it in. Why should I take the tips out the back side when I want to tie the tips in forward? That means I've got to switch it around in my hands, which there's no use using this little device because you're going to be done with it. So now I'm going to turn it around. And I've done this right. And you just get used to pinching it with the other hand, that's all. It works. I see some tips that are broken, so I'm getting rid of those. Get rid of a couple pieces. I'm going to hang that over the end. You can make these tall, you can make them short. I'm just going to put a soft wrap, pull, and I'm holding on to it. Now you could wrap around it first before you could do that little trick. I don't need to do that. I'm pinching it, and I'm pinching and I'm holding it up high. My hand here is forcing this up, so it's going to stay up there on top. Okay. So now I'm going to pull it forward, put a couple of wraps underneath here, deep underneath, force it up in the air a little bit. Bring the tips forward a little bit. Reach in and cut it. If you don't get it the first time, come back and get the next cut. Okay. I'm going to take my fingernail right back here in the tie-in point, and I'm going to pinch just a little bit, give myself a little bit. Take the thread back into the tie-in point. Put 1, 2, 3. Get myself a little more cushion in there. I take my fingernails on either side and flare that out a little bit. Kind of clean up any ones that came back over the back side there, down underneath, just clip them off. Again, this is not a presentation fly, this is a fishing fly. In contest flying, you can't get away with that. In fact, you can't even get away with lacquer on anything in contest fly. So, okay, so we want that kind of with a tilt. We don't want it standing straight up. We want kind of a thing. Boy, with that camera, I can't get away with anything here. There we go. Okay, so now we'll take a little hackle. I think that's the right one. I can be a little bigger than that. I could have had these picked out ahead of time, but I thought I'd make it like you guys, and yeah, something like that. About a hook gap is all I really want on this. Okay. I'm going to strip some off. One of the things that I do is I am right-handed. So the material that I want to take off a hackle feather, I hold with my right hand, and I move the left hand. And what I mean by that is I do not take this hand and jerk that material off like that. I hold that and I pull this. I pull this hand. And where that comes from is I do a lot of soft hackle flies. That's going to be my demonstration this afternoon. And I find that some of the partridge that we have, that if you go to and you pull, you take your right hand and you pull, sometimes you'll strip that stem and you just tear that. You're trying to get like half the fibers off one side when you're doing a soft hackle, a real nice one, and you will tear that stem up. But if you hold the material that you're going to remove and take your hand and just like this, you can take and you can pinch like right here, and I can pull like this, and then I can move my hand. Let's see, I'm going to watch that. I can move my hand right here next to that stem, and I can pinch it, and then I can hold it, and I can go just like this. So I'm going like this, and I won't tear that stem. Okay. So we're going to put a little step. We put a little step. You can see that the fiber is a little shorter on this side right here. And we're going to tie that in right there at that tie-in point. Now, if I wanted to, I could lay some lacquer in there, but we won't do that. I will get rid of that. And I got one on the back side here. I didn't say, so we're going to, and this feather is cupped back, not cupped forward, cupped back. So now I'm leaving that stem a little long, and the reason is I'm going to come up here in the front and I'm going to grab it. And I'm going to take the wraps right back again underneath that. And then if you do that, there's plenty of room to cut it off. Remember that any material, if you go to finish this fly and you have the thread sitting at the head right behind the hook eye, there's no way for that other material that you go to tie in next for it to end up. It has no place to go but over the eye. Okay? So now we got the thread sitting back. So now we can wind this. I'm going to try to do this without a hackle plier. Hold it, pushing it forward. Just 1, 2. Now I'm going to lift the deer, I'm going to lift the wing up in the front, put one. I'm going to put my finger against it to hold that hackle. 2. And then I'm going to come up for the 3rd time. And I'm going to try to stay in front. Now, I'm going to take my thread, and if I make it, and I don't get stupid, as soon as my thread hits the stem, I'm going to pull back just a little bit. And I'm going to keep pulling my thread. I got nothing but tension on my left hand right now. I'm going to grab it. I lost it. We'll do it again. Get tension on it. I'm going to drop the thread this time. It'll work a bit better. There we go. Okay, and what it does, I'm going to turn this. Let's see. Okay, is there a camera that really shows where the stem is at? Then I'll do it with my hand. Okay. What I'm doing is, this is the hackle. This finger is the stem line. This is the barbs out the other side. So as soon as my thread comes over right here, I'm going to take and I'm pulling that stem back. And what I'm doing is, as that pulls back, it tears right here just a little bit. Tears this barb right here. And then when you let go of the hackle feather, that'll stay open. That gap will stay open, and you'll be able to run your thread right through that. If you're doing a bunch of dry flies, and you're finding that when you lay your thread in, you go to tie your thread in, you're getting a couple of barbs that kind of lay out this backside to kind of weird looking, and you go, where in the hell are they coming from? That's where they're coming from. Is you didn't tear that a little bit and give this a chance to stand up or to lit. You've laid them down. You take those little barbs and you're laying them down like that. So if you take and tear that stem back a little bit, you'll find that you won't have that problem. Like it's standing straight up, gives me a perfect place. I can come right in, lay my scissors right. If I can stop shaking so bad here today. And I didn't drink anything this morning, so maybe that's the problem. Okay, so we cut that out of there. Now, this little tool here is nothing more than a bobbin that went bad on me. And it is now my half hitch tool. Okay? And I can lay this right in here. Put 3 that way, 1, 2 the other way. Slide them off. I'm going to take them and pinch them. Another thing I do sometimes, I take my fingernails, I kind of put them together, and I run them right down the eye of the hook. And I take and I try, if this is the eye, I try to take the thread and slide. If I have any thread up there, I slide it off and make sure I tighten that up so the fly won't come loose. Again, when I'm doing a dry fly, I don't, or anything like this, a fly that I'm going to use floating, I got a bunch of hackle up there. If I was to go and clip, I would cut everything out. But if I just set my scissors, the scissors should be sharp enough to cut that out of there without squeezing them. If it isn't, it's not worth it, okay? So, I can see I have an ugly little stub over here. Anyway, that's the deer hair merger.